Alright, welcome to part 2 here of this pumpkin carving that we're doing. And again, if there are any settings that you want to change, you want to do that now before we move on to the next part. So just bear in mind that anything you don't like about it, let's fix it now before we move on. Alright, next step, we are going to make the right eyes. So we are going to duplicate both of these left eye layers. So I'm going to hit this little button here to collapse my layer styles so I don't have those taking up so much room. I'm going to hold down Shift so that both of these are selected, and I'm going to click and drag down to this new piece of paper button next to the trash can. What that does is it makes a copy of each. So it says left eye copy, inside copy. And then I'm going to rename these right eye. And then we're going to select both of them again and press Control T to transform, and we're just going to right click and we're going to flip them so they're the other direction. Okay, and now while they're both selected, just take your move tool, oops, and be sure to hit the check mark here, it's waiting on me to apply that transformation. Now take your move tool and then pick it up and move it over to its position. Now notice you're going to see the gradient not be perfect, and that's okay. What we will do is on the one here that is creating our gradient, let's go ahead and double click on it and let's go ahead and modify that gradient. So while we're clicked on that one, we're just simply, while that's pulled up, we're going to go ahead and pull this over and try to make it match. There we go. And then we'll say okay. So that's that, and if there were any other changes you wanted to make to that gradient, you could do that at that point in time as well. Alright, so that takes care of that part. We've got both of those renamed, we've got them flipped, and we've got our gradients matching. Now we can create another piece of our pumpkin face. So we would create a new layer, and if you wanted to do a mouth, or you wanted to do a nose, I'm going to do a mouth, then this would be the time to do that. So we'll zoom up a little bit closer here. Again, take a black brush. I'm going to take a not so perfect brush yet again and create that, or you could go ahead and use a regular brush. I shall do it this way this time just so you can see a different way. I'll take a sharp brush, a smaller one, and I'll draw this one. So let's say, I do believe that pointy lines tend to work better when you're doing this. So you do want to make points and don't get on your blades of grass because that's bad. Alright, so there we go. That's not perfect, but that's okay. We'll fix this end part here a little bit. Alright, so I've got that all in there. Now I can take my magic wand and click in the middle and then edit, fill, and fill it with black. And then you just repeat that process again here. Edit, fill, and fill with black. And I'm not sure, there we go. And then click all of it, and then edit, fill, and fill with black. Now it should all fill in. There we go. Perfect. Now I'm going to press Control D to deselect, and then now I can go in with my kind of chunky brush, and I can sort of build in some of these edges how I want. And then I know it's all filled in good. So I'll come in here and just kind of put some of these jaggedy parts in here. And you would spend more time doing this than I'm spending right now. For the sake of time, I'm not going to spend all day doing all these, but you would definitely want to go through and make this sort of imperfect, because if you're carving a pumpkin, it's not going to be perfect, right? Definitely going to have some points and some things that are not perfect. But anyway, I'm not going to take the time to do all of that, but you would definitely want to do that for yours, okay? Alright, moving on to the next part here. Once we have this and we've got it all like we want it to be, we need a mouth, and then we need a mouth inside. So we're going to duplicate this layer. So we have two. We're going to have the mouth inside, and we're going to put it below. And then we're basically just going to copy these styles. So my inside style, I'm going to right click where the FX is, and I'm going to copy the layer style. And then on this inside one, I'm going to right click and paste the layer style. So now I put that one in there. Now I'm going to follow that along and do the same thing for the other. Copy this layer style, click on the mouth layer, and paste the layer style. And now I've got my gradient in there. Then at this point, what I need to do is modify my gradient again. So double click on that, and then I can pick this up and move it around. You want to kind of have that white part in the middle, and you might want to scale it you know, some more like that, so it matches up a little better. There we go. That takes care of that part. And then anything else you want to change. So, for instance, if the bevel doesn't seem strong enough on this one, then you can go ahead and pop back in here and mess with your bevel and, you know, maybe scale up some of the different parts of it, or modify your depth of your chisel, or your size or whatever of your chisel parts. Those parts really aren't showing up very well on this particular one at all compared to the other ones. So let's see if we've got problems on the other one maybe being in the way. No. So anyway, you just kind of have to play around with it until you get it to look like you want. And again, every person's drawing is going to be a little different on that. Okay, let's back up view-wise so we can kind of see what's going on. At this point, you're basically ready to create the glow that's going to come from it. So I'm going to create another new layer. I'm going to call it rays. We're going to create some rays of light sort of beaming from the shape. So at this point, we'll go ahead and actually, before we go on to that point, one thing we probably do need to do, and the reason we can't see the bevel, is that this top mouth is in the way and we can't see it. And on the eyeballs, remember, we made them a little smaller. So let's go ahead and do that here as well, so we can get some more of that carving look happening. There we go. And I'll use my arrow keys to sort of, there we go. That's better. Since we couldn't see our bevel because we had not made that part smaller. Okay, now let's go to the rays layer. Now we're going to draw in some rays of light. They don't have to be perfect because we're going to actually change them in a minute and make them blurry. So you're just going to pick in some sort of yellow color here. And then we're going to draw in some rays of light. You can just make kind of a big brush. You can use your kind of wanky brush here, and that's fine. We want to have some lights kind of coming out this way and kind of coming out this way. And again, it doesn't matter how perfect this is because we're going to be making changes to it anyway. But you're just going to kind of have those going on there. Okay? Now, for the fun part, we're going to go up here to Filter, and we're going to go to Blur, and we're going to use a radial blur, and we're going to add on, we're going to call it Zoom, and you could probably go really high on here. Sadly, it doesn't preview, so you can't really see it. But anyway, set it on Zoom, and hit OK, and there we go. We get kind of that zoomy effect of our rays. And then you want to pull the opacity back because we don't want it to be quite so dramatic. Okay, there we go, something like that. Now if you don't like the way yours look, you can go ahead and paint on here again, you know, add some more. You're going to blur it again. So if you're not digging the way that it looks, understand that when you put these in here, like my bottom part looks pretty good, I just don't like these. And I'm just going to blur it again. So Filter and just hit the button at the top and it'll repeat it. There we go. And again, you can pull back the opacity some. Alright, that looks pretty good. So now I've got my crazy evil pumpkin going on there. Really the last thing that you would do would just be to give it an overall scarier look. So we can add a curves adjustment layer on top. Again, this is totally optional really. You can pull these down to make it darker and spookier, or up if you need to let a little bit more of the color in, or whatever, however you want to do it. So there's your curves adjustment. I'm just doing it kind of in that sort of design. And then add your name. So click on here. I'm just going to paint it on there with a paintbrush. You could use a white or yellow or whatever. I like to draw things really huge and then size them down. So TS, there's my initials. And then I'll Control T and just stick this guy in the corner. I'll hit Enter to accept that transformation. And then we'll position it over here, pull the opacity back so it can be a little bit blended in there. And that's pretty much it. So there we go. We went from just a plain old pumpkin. Let's take a look at this in the history because it is kind of cool to think about it. I'm going to hit a snapshot here. So here we go. Here's our before and there's our after. And we didn't use anything but our Photoshop skills to make that happen. So I hope you enjoyed this short tutorial for how to create your own pumpkin carving in Photoshop.